Get the fuck off my property before I call the cops and report you for trespassing, harassment, and whatever else I can think of while you're still standing here uninvited on my goddamn driveway. I was standing barefoot on the flagstone path of my North Carolina lake house. Sunday morning sun, barely up, coffee mug in one hand and my phone in the other, already dialing 911, staring down a woman who'd just informed me she was requisitioning my backyard for a private HOA celebration next weekend. She didn't flinch, just smiled that smile the kind sharks make right before they bite. Cream-colored Lululemon leggings, designer blazer over a silk blouse despite the August heat, pearl earrings that probably cost more than my truck payment, and a clipboard clutched like it was the Declaration of Independence. "Mr. Patterson," she said, pronouncing each syllable with practiced precision, "there's no need for hostility. I'm Patricia Vance, president of Lakeshore Meadows HOA. We're simply asking for community cooperation. Your property would be perfect for our board chair's retirement gala. We'd handle everything, catering, valet, cleanup. You wouldn't even notice we were here." Notice? I took a step forward. "Lady, I bought this place specifically to get away from people like you. It's not a venue. It's not community property. It's mine. And you just walked through a gate marked private property without permission. So, yeah, I'm hostile. And you're leaving." Now, her smile tightened like plastic wrap over spoiled meat. How unfortunate. People who refuse to cooperate with their neighbors often discover that isolation can be uncomfortable, especially when systems fail. Is that a threat? It's a reality check, Mr. Patterson. In communities like ours, connections matter. Sewage systems, water access, utility easements, so many things can go wrong when you're not part of the collective maintenance plan. I stared at her, trying to process whether she'd just threatened to sabotage my plumbing over a party venue. "Get out. Before I make you." She turned on her designer heels, walking back toward the road like she was leaving a tennis match she'd already won. "We'll be in touch." She called back without turning around. I stood there watching her white Range Rover disappear down the tree-lined drive, rage simmering in my chest like water about to boil. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I'm standing in my basement in rubber boots, shin deep in raw sewage that's warmer than bath water, staring at the ruins of everything I own while trying not to vomit, and I know exactly who did this. 6 months ago, if you'd told me I'd be fighting an HOA president in criminal court over deliberate sewage sabotage, I would have laughed and poured you another bourbon. Back then, my biggest problem was whether to add a fire pit or extend the dock on my lake house property. I'm Jackson Patterson, 38 years old, former Navy intelligence analyst, current cybersecurity consultant working remotely from wherever I damn well please. After 12 years analyzing threat patterns for the government, I cashed out, took a contractor position that paid twice as much for half the stress, and bought myself a slice of paradise. 3 acres of waterfront property on Lake Norman, North Carolina, about 40 minutes north of Charlotte, close enough to catch a Hornets game when I want civilization, far enough that I can't hear traffic or neighbors or anything except water lapping against my dock and the occasional osprey diving for fish. The house itself is a custom-built modern cabin, 2 stories, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the lake, wrap-around deck, outdoor kitchen, infinity pool that seems to pour directly into the water. Inside, I've got a basement workshop, server room for my work setup, home gym, and enough smart home technology to make my Navy buddies jealous. I bought the land in 2019, built the house in 2020 to 2021, and moved in full-time in 2022. No HOA, no covenants, no restrictions. Just 3 acres of waterfront freedom with a deed so clean it practically sparkles. The property sits at the western edge of what used to be undeveloped shoreline. When I bought it, the nearest neighbors were a retired couple with a fishing cabin and a horse farm about a half-mile down the road. Quiet, respectful. The kind of people who wave when you pass and mind their own business. Then Lakeshore Meadows broke ground in 2023. A luxury waterfront development where homes started at $1.8 million and came with concierge lifestyle services, private boat slips, and an HOA so aggressive they had architectural review committees for mailbox colors. 200 identical houses in 5 unique designs, arranged in perfect rows along manufactured cul-de-sacs with names like Tranquil Bay Court and Serenity Shore Lane. The kind of place where people paid millions to live in matching boxes and called it exclusive, where you needed board approval to plant flowers, where Christmas decorations had to be white lights only, approved vendors only, removal by January 2nd or face fines. At first, we coexisted. Different worlds separated by a property line. They had their matching mailboxes and weekend wine and cheese socials. I had my lake, my privacy, and my dog Cooper, who thought HOA stood for humans. Obviously annoying. Then Patricia Vance showed up. The first sign of trouble came on a Saturday morning in July 2024. I was down at my dock repairing a cleat when I noticed someone standing at my property line taking photos. Professional camera, long lens, focused on my house. I walked over, Cooper trotting beside me. "Can I help you?" The man, early 40s, polo shirt tucked into pressed khakis, hair gelled into submission, lowered the camera and smiled with his mouth, but not his eyes, just documenting some community concerns for the Lakeshore Meadows Architectural Review Committee. Concerns about what? This isn't your property. Actually, he pulled out a tablet. Properties within viewshed proximity of Lakeshore Meadows are subject to aesthetic impact assessments per county ordinance 14.7b. I looked at him like he'd just spoken Klingon. Viewshed proximity? That's not a real thing, and you're on my land without permission. That's trespassing, which is a very real thing. Sir, the HOA has a responsibility to ensure property values. The HOA has a responsibility to manage their own community, not mine. Get off my property! He left, but not before taking several more photos, making a show of documenting my hostility on his tablet. 2 days later, I found a glossy packet zip-tied to my gate, Lakeshore Meadows Community Enhancement Initiative printed across the front in elegant script. Inside was a courtesy notice listing violations I'd allegedly committed. Unpermitted dock modifications. My dock, built in 2020, fully permitted. Non-compliant exterior lighting. My security lights. Excessive waterfront structures. My boat lift. Visual impact concerns my house being visible from their development. The final team. Page offered a voluntary integration program, pay $12,000 in annual HOA dues, submit all property changes for approval, and agree to aesthetic coordination measures, including repainting my house to match their approved palette. I laughed so hard I spilled my coffee. Then I threw the packet in the trash and went back to my day. That was my first mistake. I should have recognized it for what it was, a declaration of war wrapped in corporate buzzwords and pastel paper. 3 weeks later, Patricia showed up at my door. White Range Rover. Designer everything. Clipboard like a religious text. Jackson Patterson? She extended a manicured hand I didn't shake. I'm Patricia Vance, president of Lakeshore Meadows HOA. I hope you received our community enhancement materials? I did. I recycled them. Her smile froze for half a second. I see. Well, I'm here to discuss a more immediate opportunity. We're hosting a very special event, our board chair's retirement celebration, and we're looking for a suitable outdoor venue. Your property would be perfect. It's not available. We'd compensate you, of course, plus handle all logistics, catering, valet, portable facilities. It's not available because it's my home. I don't rent it out. Especially not for parties. Patricia's expression shifted, still smiling, but colder. Mr. Patterson, community cooperation benefits everyone. You're technically not in the HOA, but you're adjacent. And frankly, with waterfront property like this. She gestured toward the lake. It seems selfish to keep it locked away when neighbors could enjoy it. Selfish? I set down my coffee cup slowly. Let me be crystal clear. This is private property. I don't owe you or your HOA anything. Not access, not cooperation, not my backyard for your party. The answer is no. She paused, then her smile sharpened into something predatory. How unfortunate. People who refuse to work with their community often discover that independence can be problematic. Utility systems, drainage issues, permitting complications, so many things can go wrong when you're not part of collective planning. That's when I realized she wasn't making a prediction. She was making a threat. Get off my property, now. She left slowly, deliberately, like she'd already won some game I didn't know we were playing. I should have called my lawyer that day, should have documented the threat, should have installed more security cameras. Instead, I finished my coffee, took Cooper for a walk, and tried to forget about the uncomfortable chill Patricia Vance had left in the air. 3 weeks later, I came back from a work trip to Charlotte and opened my basement door to find my entire lower level flooded with raw sewage. The smell hit me first. Not just unpleasant, actively hostile. Like something had died, rotted, and then been reheated in the August sun. I gagged, eyes watering, stumbling backward from the basement door. Jesus Christ, I choked out, pulling my shirt over my nose. I forced myself to look. The beam of my flashlight caught the surface of the water, murky, brownish, viscous, floating debris. The unmistakable stench of human waste. My gym equipment was submerged. My server racks, my workshop tools. Everything I'd stored down there was marinating in raw sewage that filled the space to nearly 2 feet deep. I stepped down onto the first stair. The second, on the third, my boot slipped and my foot plunged into the warm muck. Warm. That detail hit me harder than the smell. Sewage shouldn't be warm unless it just came from somewhere close. I got out of there, fighting the urge to vomit, and immediately called an emergency restoration company. While waiting, I called my insurance. Then I called a private plumber I'd used during construction, a guy named Marcus, who wouldn't sugarcoat anything. Whatever it is, I told him, bring every tool you've got. This isn't normal. While waiting for help, I walked the perimeter of the house. Something looked wrong near the property line, freshly disturbed soil along the route where my sewer line ran toward the lake. Someone had been digging here, recently. Marcus arrived within 90 minutes, a barrel-chested man in his 50s who'd seen more disasters than anyone should. He took one look at the basement and swore under his breath. That's not a backup. That's forced entry. Forced? He started tracing the line, checking pressure, inspecting valves. I followed with my flashlight, breathing through my mouth. When he found the problem, he stood up slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans. Your backflow preventer is completely severed, he said. And this, he pointed at a new fitting on the main sewer line, this is a fresh tie-in that wasn't here before. Someone connected another system to yours and rerouted waste directly into your house. My blood went cold. You're telling me someone deliberately flooded my basement with sewage? With pressure. They didn't just let it back up, they forced it in. This was planned, executed by someone who knows plumbing, and designed to cause maximum damage. I stood there, breathing through the rage building in my chest. Patricia's face flashed through my mind. Her smile, her threat, utility systems. So many things can go wrong. Can you tell where the connection came from? Marcus traced the line toward the property boundary. That way, toward the HOA development. I'd bet money they tied your line into their community system and sabotaged your preventer so everything would flow backward into your house. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Can you document everything? I'm going to need evidence. You're going to sue? I'm going to bury them. The cleanup took 4 days and cost $47,000. Insurance covered some of it, but they required a full investigation before approving the claim. The restoration crew pumped out the sewage, stripped the basement to the studs, treated everything with industrial disinfectant that smelled almost as bad as the sewage. While they worked, Marcus brought in a civil engineer to document the illegal tie-in. They excavated the connection point, photographed everything, and produced a 30-page report confirming deliberate sabotage. Then, I reviewed my security footage. I had cameras covering the front gate, dock, and driveway, but nothing on the back property line, a gap I'd soon regret. But I did have motion sensor logs from my smart home system. 3 weeks ago, 2 days after Patricia's visit, multiple sensors triggered along the back fence between 2 and 4 a.m. The system logged prolonged motion for nearly 2 hours. Someone had been on my property for 2 hours in the middle of the night, working where my sewer line was accessible. I compiled everything: Marcus's report, the engineer's documentation, photos of the illegal tie-in, security logs, even a screenshot of Patricia's text after I'd refused her request. Unfortunate decision. Hope you don't regret it. Then I called my attorney, David Winters, a property law specialist who'd handled my land purchase. After seeing the evidence, he didn't mince words. This is criminal, Jackson, not just civil. Someone committed felony property damage, illegal connection to utilities, and possibly conspiracy. You need to file a police report immediately. You think it's the HOA? I think someone with plumbing knowledge, access to your property line, and a motive just committed a serious crime. Whether Patricia ordered it directly or created the environment for it to happen, either way, she's liable. I called the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office and filed a report. The deputy took it seriously once I showed him the photos and engineering report. A detective would follow up within a week. But I didn't stop there. I installed 6 additional cameras covering every inch of my property, including infrared night vision units along the back fence. If they came back, I'd have them on video. That night, I sat on my deck with a bourbon and Cooper at my feet, staring across the water at the lights of Lakeshore Meadows glittering like a hostile city. They'd crossed a line. Not just property boundaries, they'd violated my home, destroyed my belongings, and left me wading through literal shit. Now it was my turn. I expected the police to follow up. Instead, I got a surprise visit from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Tuesday morning, I was inspecting the basement repairs when an unmarked sedan pulled up outside. 2 inspectors in polo shirts stepped out and introduced themselves as environmental compliance officers responding to a complaint. Complaint about what? They handed me a printed notice. Someone had filed a report claiming my property was leaking untreated wastewater into the lake, endangering the watershed and violating state environmental regulations. Who filed this? I asked. We can't disclose that. Privacy regulations. Let me guess it came with photos and witness statements. The lead inspector nodded. Multiple residents reported seeing discoloration in the water near your dock and fluid runoff from your property. I laughed not because it was funny, but because the audacity was almost impressive. Patricia had sabotaged my sewage system, then filed a complaint accusing me of being the polluter. Come inside, I said. I'll show you exactly what happened. I laid it all out: Marcus's report, the engineering documentation, photos of the illegal tie-in, security logs showing nighttime intrusion. The inspector's expression shifted from bureaucratic neutrality to genuine concern. This is not what we expected, he admitted. We'll need to investigate the source of that connection. If another property illegally tied into your system, that changes everything. It's the HOA, Lakeshore Meadows. They sabotaged my line after I refused to let them use my property for a party. He made notes, took copies of everything, and promised a full investigation. But as he left, he warned me. These cases get complicated. The HOA will fight back. Document everything. Get good legal representation, and be ready for this to get ugly. It was already ugly, but he was right about one thing. It was about to get worse. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from the county. A formal cease and desist order against me, filed by Lakeshore Meadows HOA, claiming I was operating an unregulated waste discharge facility and posing an environmental threat to the community. I called David immediately. They're framing me. Classic defensive move, he said. Accuse the victim to create legal confusion. Makes it harder for you to press charges when you're simultaneously defending yourself. So what do? We go nuclear, file a comprehensive lawsuit against Patricia personally, the HOA board, and any contractors involved, demand full disclosure of their utility records, and we loop in the district attorney because this is definitely criminal. We filed that week. $3.5 million in damages, property destruction, lost equipment, cleanup costs, emotional distress, and punitive damages for deliberate sabotage. But I wanted more than money. I wanted proof. I wanted Patricia on record admitting what she'd done, so I set a trap. The following Sunday, I sat on my deck monitoring my new security cameras. Just after midnight, two figures appeared on the back property line. Same location as before, same quiet flashlights, same furtive movements. But this time, my cameras caught everything in crystal clear infrared. Two men in work vests, carrying tools, heading straight for the sewer line. "Dude, it's fixed again," one of them muttered, clearly audible on my audio pickup. "We supposed to break it?" Patricia said no tools this time. Just document that it's been repaired. Make it look like he's still violating code. I had them. On video. On audio. Naming Patricia explicitly. The next morning, I sent the footage to David and the detective handling my case. Within 48 hours, the sheriff's office had enough for a search warrant. But before they could execute it, Patricia showed up at my door again. This time, she brought cookies, and a folder, and a smile so sweet I nearly got diabetes just looking at her. "Jackson, I think we got off on the wrong foot," she said, setting the folder on my kitchen counter like a peace offering. "There's no reason we can't be good neighbors. The board has discussed it, and we're willing to assist with your cleanup costs if you'd consider being more collaborative going forward." I said nothing, just nodded and let her talk. What she didn't know was that I had a camera above the refrigerator recording everything. She rambled on about community cooperation, misunderstandings, emotions running high. Then she slipped. "Some board members were frustrated about the event situation," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Mistakes were made. But we can't undo the past, right? Let's focus on moving forward together." "What kind of mistakes exactly?" She hesitated. "Look, I wasn't explicitly aware of technical details. Sometimes people act on assumptions, misinterpret guidance, but I want to make this right." I kept my expression neutral while internally grinning like a wolf. She'd just admitted knowing enough to cover herself while implicitly acknowledging the sabotage. After she left, I sent the recording to David. "She's trying to interfere with the investigation. She's also giving us evidence of consciousness, of guilt. This just got better." 2 days later, the sheriff's office executed the search warrant on the Lakeshore Meadows HOA office. What they found was damning. A contract between the HOA and an unlicensed plumbing consultant. The consultant's name? Thomas Vance, Patricia's brother. Maintenance requests dated 1 week before my sewage flood, authorizing utility line access for drainage assessment on adjacent properties. Internal emails that made my blood boil. "Marshall won't cooperate. We need to make it clear that independent properties can't disrupt community priorities. If his system backs up, maybe he'll reconsider being neighborly. Tom says it's easy to reroute without detection. Should send a clear message. The detective called me personally. Mr. Patterson, we're moving forward with criminal charges. Multiple counts, including conspiracy, property damage, illegal utility tampering, and fraud." Against Patricia? Against her, her brother, and 2 contractors we've identified from your video footage. The story hit the news the next day. Local papers ran with it. HOA president arrested in sewage sabotage case. Then regional news picked it up. Then CNN. My lake house became a symbol, the independent homeowner fighting corporate tyranny, David versus Goliath, freedom versus conformity. Patricia tried to spin it on social media, claiming selective editing and a smear campaign by a difficult outsider. But the evidence didn't lie. The videos spoke for themselves. The criminal trial came first. Patricia faced felony charges that could send her to prison for years. The evidence was overwhelming: the emails, the videos, Marcus's engineering report, testimony from the contractors who'd been caught on camera. Patricia's defense was predictable. She claimed the contractors acted independently, that she never explicitly ordered sabotage, that her comments were taken out of context. Then the prosecution played the video of her in my kitchen. Mistakes were made. I wasn't explicitly aware of technical details. Every euphemism, every carefully chosen phrase designed to admit just enough to seem cooperative while denying direct responsibility. The jury wasn't buying it. They deliberated for 6 hours, came back with guilty verdicts on 7 counts, including conspiracy to commit property damage, illegal utility tampering, and obstruction of justice. Sentencing: 6 years federal prison, 3 years state, running consecutively, plus $500,000 in restitution. Her brother got 7 years. The contractors got probation and hefty fines, but the civil case was where I got justice. The jury awarded me $4.2 million higher than I'd sued for. Compensatory damages for property destruction and emotional distress. Punitive damages because the sabotage was so egregious. Within weeks, U.S. Marshals arrived at Lakeshore Meadows to seize HOA assets. Bank accounts frozen. Records seized. The HOA board dissolved. A county administrator took over to manage basic services. Residents flooded social media. Where did our dues go? Why didn't anyone stop her? She said she was protecting property values. The development that had seemed so perfect was revealed as a dictatorship run by one woman with a clipboard and no conscience. It took 4 months for my house to feel like home again. The basement was completely rebuilt. New floors, new walls, new everything. Insurance covered some. The lawsuit paid for the rest. I added security upgrades, steel gates, more cameras, motion sensors on every boundary, and my personal favorite, a custom metal plaque on the back fence. Private property. Trespassers prosecuted HOA members. Stay on your side. I still live here. Still work from my lake house. Still watch the sun set over the water with Cooper at my feet and a bourbon in my hand. Lakeshore Meadows is quieter now. The sign at the entrance was replaced with something more modest. The new management company is reasonable. Nobody talks about parties anymore. Sometimes I see former residents at the grocery store. Some offer sheepish waves. One man actually apologized. "Sorry we didn't speak up sooner." I just shrugged. Water under the bridge, or sewage in this case. He laughed uncomfortably and walked away. Epilogue: Patricia was released on parole after serving 4 years. Last I heard, she moved to Florida, works retail, drives a used Honda. Her Range Rover was seized and auctioned. Her designer wardrobe sold on eBay. Her clipboard probably ended up in a landfill where it belonged. Her brother finished his sentence last month, still on probation, still paying restitution. The contractors lost their licenses. One moved to Texas. The other got a job at a hardware store. And me? I'm still here. Still enjoying my lake, my privacy, my freedom. I added one more line to my fence plaque. She wanted my backyard for a party. I got her sent to prison for sewage terrorism. Choose your battles wisely. Friends love it. HOA folks? Not so much. But here's the beautiful irony. Remember that environmental complaint Patricia filed claiming I was polluting the lake? The real Department of Environmental Quality investigation found that Lakeshore Meadows had multiple illegal drainage issues, unpermitted gray water runoff, and violations stretching under 2 neighboring properties. They were fined $180,000 by the county. So Patricia's attempt to frame me for pollution became the reason they got investigated and fined. Sometimes karma doesn't knock on the door. Sometimes it backs up through the pipes and floods your basement. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice smells absolutely beautiful, even when it stinks. The end.